People who can write books that have like a dozen or more characters that help carry the narrative is just so insane. Like, that is a skill that is so far beyond me, I don't think I'll ever have it. Hello everybody, my name is Danny, and welcome back to my channel. Today I have another installment of Let's Talk Tropes, although for this one we are talking about several tropes all lumped under the name of cast calculus. Basically, cast calculus is what a writer does when they try to figure out how many characters they need to fill out the narrative of their story and how to balance them with each other. So for this video, we are going to go through the different numbers of characters you can have and talk about some of the tropes that fit those characters and how to balance it out. So without any further ado, why don't we get into it? So if you have one main important character carrying your narrative, this is usually the lone survivor or the antisocial outcast, depending on what genre you are writing. And this story can go in one of two ways. Either it will bring your character into a larger group by the end of it to show how they have grown, or they remain this one lone person and instead have a sort of revolving cast of background characters and temporary companions that will show how the character is growing based on how they interact with the different characters. And a good example of this is Superman being the only survivor from Krypton, which kind of is not true when you get to later iterations when you meet Supergirl and stuff, but we're just going to stick with Superman for this example because it's the best one I thought of. When you have two characters, these tend to be polar opposites like brains versus bronze, emotional versus analytical, straight-laced versus a rule breaker, and they can take many forms such as a hero and a sidekick. You can have two siblings, or even love interests, which is a very common choice. And so when you have two characters carrying the narrative like this, everything that one character does is used to highlight a characteristic that the other character has. They can do this in many ways, but two of the most popular ways are foils and mirrors. So foils are two characters that come from different backgrounds, and the choices that they make from stemming from those backgrounds are what highlight the differences in each other. And mirrors are characters that have similar backgrounds, and so the choices that they make that differ, even despite this similar background, is what highlights this dichotomy. So some examples are Sherlock Holmes and John Watson, or Sam and Dean from Supernatural. So when you have three characters carrying the narrative, there are several ways you can do this, and one common way is the soul triptych, which is where one character represents the body, one character represents the mind, and one represents the heart. You could also do this in like a Freudian type of trio and have one represent the id, one the ego, and one the superego. And 3 is a very common number to have for your main characters, and for this reason they are often called the power trio. And basically, this will be like the two characters where there are polar opposites, and then there is the third character acting as the mediator or balance between the two. And the best example I can think of is this are Harry, Ron, and Hermione from Harry Potter. If we're going off the soul triptych trope, then Harry would be the heart, Ron would be the body, and Hermione would be the mind. For 4 characters, you can have things like the 4 temperament ensemble, which is basically you have 4 characters, 2 of which are very high in terms of emotions, and the other 2 are very low and usually more analytical. And then within those 2 pairs, one is always more introverted and one is more extroverted. And so you get kind of a mix and match. You have the 4 element ensemble, which is where one character kind of embodies the element of earth, one air, one fire, and one water. You can have the 4 philosophy ensemble, which is where one character is a cynic, one is a realist, one is an optimist, and one is apathetic. Basically, anything like that. And often in this type of story, you will find reasons for the characters to split up and pair off, and this is how you see the characters interact with each other in duos, and they become like mirrors and foils and things like that. And you can see how each thing that one character does highlights this other character, and then they all come back together and split off in a different way, that sort of thing. And some examples of this are the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or the Fantastic Four. Next up, you have 5 characters carrying the narrative, and in this case it is basically exactly what I said for the 4 characters, except you have the 5th one that is sort of a neutral mediator. And the best example I could think of for this is from Avatar: The Last Airbender. So this follows the elemental breakup. So you have Aang, which is air, Katara is water, Toph is earth, and Zuko is fire, and then you have Sokka, who isn't a bender at all, and he is the mediator between the group. He is the neutral ground. And then once you get to 6 or more characters, it's kind of less divided the way it is for smaller groups, and it's more like you have this large cast that can be broken down into the smaller groups depending on the different dynamics. So in the Queen's Quartet, throughout the 4 books, there are different number of people carrying the narrative, and they fit into those different tropes depending on the group size and who is in the group. So for example, Juno is the main character, and everyone else is really just a strong support, so in that way you could see her as this lone survivor kind of thing. Even though she doesn't fully fit that trope, she is the one protagonist. Then for duos, you have Juno and Korra, who are siblings, and also Oksana and Mikula are also siblings, so they have a very similar dynamic. There are also several romantic pairings throughout the book that I will not explicitly mention because spoilers. Then you get to trios, and you have Korra along with 2 characters, Lydia and Cecily, who act as a sort of trio of advisors to Juno, and they all play off of each other in that way. And I personally use the soul triptych for that and have one represent the heart, one the mind, and one the body, because I felt they just felt true to their characters, and so on and so forth. So at the end of the day, for people who like to plan out their stories ahead of time, it takes a lot of planning to figure out how to balance your story and figure out which characters carry the narrative more than others and how they play off of each other in this way. And if you're a pantser, it will definitely take a lot of drafting to get through and figure out your characters. And an important thing to remember is that characters will fit different groups at different times and play off of each other differently. And once they are in one grouping, it's not like they're stuck there forever. They can definitely change and grow and move among different people. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and let me know down in the comments if cast calculus is something that you think about when writing, or if character and group dynamics are more the sort of thing you figure out as you go along and draft. You can feel free to subscribe to my channel for more content, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!